Hey guys, welcome. Going to talk today about how God gets our attention and why God gets our attention and what we ought to do when God gets our attention. Listen on in today.
Welcome to Everyday Truth with Kurt Skelly. We believe the Bible is true and relevant to everyone, everywhere, every day. If today's conversation is a help to you, take a moment to leave a review or share it with a friend. Thanks for listening. Now, let's join Kurt for today's episode.
Hey friends, glad you joined us. We're in 2 Kings today. In the Hebrew Bible, it's just Kings. So it's one big long book. And we're talking about these kings in both the northern kingdom of Israel, actually called Israel, and the southern kingdom called Judah. And we're learning that all of the kings in the northern kingdom are bad. Every single one of them. How sad that is. For 250 years, the northern kingdom had kings, all of whom just rebelled against God. And yet God had mercy for so much time. And that really is I think the underscored message of the book of Kings is just the mercy, the patience, the long suffering of the Lord. And that's a great thing. But remember, just because God is patient and long-suffering, just because he's slow to anger, doesn't mean that anger never comes or that judgment is averted. And we're going to find today that that's simply not true. We've seen it over and over again. So 2 Kings chapter 1, the Bible says, "Then Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab." So we're in this section of Israel's history where Ahab has died. The king of the southern kingdom at this time is Jehoshaphat. Remember the battle against Ramoth Gilead? Micaiah had warned both of them not to go, that the battle would be a complete loss, that Ahab would die. Well, all of that has happened. So now Jehoshaphat continues to reign in the southern kingdom, and the northern kingdom is now ruled by Ahab's son, his oldest son, a man by the name of Ahaziah. And ironically, the name Ahaziah means Jehovah sustains. But he does not act according to his namesake at all. Just because somebody is called something doesn't mean that they are what they're called. And Ahaziah is anything but a follower of Jehovah. We've already learned last episode that Ahaziah is really a follower of Baal. Such was the influence of his dad. Such was the influence of his mom. Probably even his mom had a greater influence in his life. And the Bible says also he followed the ways of Jeroboam. So Jeroboam was the first king of the divided northern kingdom. And God keeps on comparing people back to him. Why? Because he set the tone. He set the direction. So he has a culpability for the idolatry that started the northern kingdom. Remember how Jeroboam set those golden calves up in Dan and in Bethel and all of that. So here's Ahaziah. And the Bible says at the beginning of 2 Kings that Moab, now where did they come from? Moab. They rebelled against Israel. Well, here's Moab. Moab is the country on the other side of the Jordan River, a little bit south. So their border extends up maybe as far as where the Dead Sea, the northern part of the Dead Sea is, maybe even a little bit further north than that. And they are the offspring of Lot. Remember, Ammon and Moab were the sons of Lot. And these are really the cousins of Israel and Judah, but they have been enemies all these years. And for a season, Moab has been paying tribute to Israel. Israel is bigger, Israel is more dominant militarily, and they've been paying tax money to Ahab. But remember, Ahab has now died. And remember, Ahab has now been defeated by the Syrians, so the country is weakened. So in that weakened state, what's happening? Well, what's happening is Moab is looking at this as an opportunistic moment for them to stop paying taxes. So they're rebelling against Israel. And it says in verse number 2 that Ahaziah fell down through a lattice in his upper chamber that was in Samaria. What a random two verses. So on the one hand, you see this huge economic problem that is now infecting or affecting the country, that they're losing all of this tax revenue from Moab because of the death of Ahab. But then to add insult to injury, you have this great personal tragedy in Ahaziah's life, because as a young man, he falls through the lattice of the upper chamber of his house and suffers this freak accident. And it says that he was sick, injured, that would be. He sent messengers and said unto them, go inquire of Beelzebub. Literally, that means the Lord of the Flies. Go inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. So where's Ekron or Ekron? It is one of the 5 city-states of Philistia. Whether I shall recover of this disease. So got the scene? Here's the scene. The country is in a weakened state because they've lost the battle to the Syrians. They are in an economically weak state because now they're losing tax revenue from Moab. And now they are challenged because their king has suffered this freak accident and he's injured and it looks as if he may die. And then how does King Ahaziah respond to all of this? Well, what a great opportunity for him just to humble himself. What a great opportunity for him to learn from the mistakes of his father and mother and seek the God that can bring down fire from heaven, to seek the God that can bring the rain back, to seek the God that defeated the Syrians. I mean, Ahaziah has a lot of information in his mental pouch by which he can make the right decision. And yet, what does he do? He doubles down on the idolatry. He doubles down. And instead of seeking the God of Israel, he seeks the false God of Philistia. Well, what a crazy and wacky choice that is. And I find that to be true even today, that people tend to double down on the false objects of their faith. You know, they double down. Instead of allowing trials, personal trial, instead of allowing trials, national trial, to drive him to his knees and to humility and to the God that can actually solve his problems, he's sending messengers to the false god of another nation. How does the Lord deal with this? Well, look at verse number 3. But the angel of the Lord. So you see that term throughout the New Testament, the express messenger of God. Some have even pointed to the fact that the angel of the Lord could be an Old Testament appearance of Jesus in bodily form. So whoever this angel of the Lord is, it's a divine message to, watch it, verse number 3, to Elijah the Tishbite. So Elijah's ministry is not over, even though Elijah thought his ministry was over. Remember Elijah running from Jezebel. Remember Elijah, just kill me, I'm done, I'm the only one, hunkered down in that cave at Mount Sinai. Remember the still small voice and how God said, Elijah, stop. You know, there's plenty more for you to do. Get back to work. And obviously that's the Skelly version, but that's what God told him. And this is part of his ministry. Elijah has already gone back and rebuked Ahab about Naboth's vineyard. And now again, God is speaking to Elijah to deal with the apostasy in Ahab's reign, now in the form of his son Ahaziah. So the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria. So Elijah, we're going to find, does exactly this, and he has a message from God. One thing I like to think about is the fact that Elisha is now following Elijah. So could it be, the text doesn't mention this, but could it be that Elisha also was a fly on the wall watching all of this? Well, the Bible says that Elijah is told to go intercept the messengers that have been sent from Samaria to go to Ekron in Philistia So on their way down to Ekron, Elijah intercepts them. These messengers that are going down to get an answer from a false god. And it says here in verse number 3 that Elijah says, "Is it not because there is not a God in Israel that you go to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Now therefore thus saith the Lord, thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die." And Elijah departed. So Elijah intercepts this group of messengers that are going all the way to Philistia to get a message for Ahaziah that Ahaziah is hoping is a good message, that he'll live. And instead of allowing the messengers to get to their destination, God just intercepts the whole situation with Elijah and says, just tell the messengers, hey, where are you going? Don't you have a God in Israel? And I think the sarcastic point of that question to the messengers is, you are not utilizing the resource you do have, the true resource, the omniscient resource, the powerful resource, the resource of your God, the God that is the God of Israel, and you're going to a false God, a God that is no God, and in another nation. No, that this is ridiculous. So I'll give you the message right now. Just go back to King Ahaziah and tell him you're going to die. In fact, the Hebrew language brings this out much more poignantly. Dying, you shall die. That's what the literal translation is. Dying, you shall die. You're a dead man, Ahaziah. You are going to pay for this rebellion against God. So what is Ahaziah's real problem? Is his real problem the military defeat to the Syrians? No. Is his real problem the economic problem caused by the lack of revenue from Moab? No. Is his real problem the falling through the lattice and having this injury that he doesn't think he may not come back from? Is that his real problem, physical? No. His real problem is the spiritual problem. All of these other things are just ways to get his attention to reveal to Ahaziah about himself that all of your trust, all of your faith, all of your confidence is misplaced. And I wonder if that might not be what God is doing in my life and in yours. Sometimes we look at circumstances and we don't see beyond them, or we don't analyze them more deeply. I'm not saying that if a negative thing has befallen you economically or physically, that necessarily means that God is judging you. But here's what it does mean. It does mean that you ought to pay extra, special, careful attention to your walk with God, where your faith resides, what truly is important and ought to be prioritized in your life. Tragedy and trouble ought to be trumpets that alarm us to the fact that what we really need in any given situation is a greater capacity to see and to trust our God. Ahaziah failed abysmally, and we're going to see how that failure extenuates when we talk about this next episode. So we'll stop right there for now in verse number 4. Believe it or not, we'll cover verses 5 through 18 tomorrow because it's a narrative story, and we'll see the rest of the story. Until then, have a great day in the Lord. God bless you, my friends.